Wow. Pretty impressive wins for the Sharks and for the Brumbies. Pretty different results overall. With the Highlanders at home, probably not expecting to be beaten quite like that. And for the Rebels, their season is in a wee bit of trouble with two losses to start things off. But I'll start with the first one. And it started a bit messy. The Highlanders did get a scrum penalty, and their scrum seemed kind of pretty good early. They kicked a penalty 3-0. Both sides kicked penalties 3-all. So many penalties that break down. It was a pretty ugly game to watch at the start. It's kind of fortunate there weren't that many people watching it. Dunedin has a lot of students that attend the games with the university being down there. And it is not university season, so that might be a good thing for Highlanders' future attendance because, yeah, it was pretty messy. The Sharks went in front 6 points to 3 with a second penalty, and they never looked back. Tries to Fenter, and he's looked pretty good. Some of the guys actually told me to look out for him this year, and now I can see why. He was interviewed after the game. Seems like a pretty humble dude, which is also pretty cool. Likewise, Lukanyama was interviewed, and again, humble, which I think a lot of us Kiwi fans can appreciate anyway. But yeah, he showed some serious gas with his try. Mapimpi got a double. He's coming off a World Cup winning campaign. So yeah, it's kind of no surprise that he's still looking in good form. And Fussy kind of did the same thing, a double strike for him before the end of the game. And his one was kind of important because you'll notice that the Highlanders try times 47 minutes, 61, 74. They were kind of starting to come back into the game. Their tries were through Hunt, Nareki, and Collins, and that's Dylan Hunt, not Mitch. So yeah, it was a bit of a game of two halves. Momentum definitely with the Sharks in the first half. They capitalized, went out to a pretty good lead. I think it was like 27-3 at halftime. So they were really putting the Highlanders to the sword. But at one point it was 30 points to 15. And you thought, okay, Highlanders, second half, coming right, good team talk, whatever they said is working. Sharks travel, it's going to catch up to them. Highlanders will run them down. But, man, that man Fussy, some proper wheels on that guy. He's only young, big guy, good fend, 2 tries. Very cool stuff. So, yeah, the Highlanders did get a consolation try through Collins right towards the end, but then Fussy got his last one right before full time. So, yeah, man, the Sharks season is off to a very good start with 2 wins. I was a little bit worried for them having such an early travel, a couple of games on their fixtures list, but so far so good. They play the Canes next week, so that'll be an interesting, very interesting game with the Canes themselves having to do some travel to come back. The Highlanders will need to bounce back because they had the extra week off with the bye, and it didn't really seem to help. Not sure about the experiment with Josh Ioane at 12. Yeah, I think he looks better at 10, but hey, it's only one game. We'll see how things go. Final stats for that one, the Highlanders had 58% possession, 67% territory, but run meters were fairly even despite that kind of marked difference there. Knock-ons, Highlanders 13, Sharks 5. Yeah, you can't be doing that at this level. Turnovers conceded overall, which includes the knock-ons, was 21-8. So yeah, the Highlanders guilty of coughing up way too much pill. Defensive stats, 82% for them, 84% for the Sharks. The Sharks had to make 99 tackles to the Highlanders 65. That's a pretty low tackle count overall, but that speaks to how many knock-ons were in this game, how many scrums we had to set. Also, the line-out stat for the Highlanders was only 16 from 20, so 80%, which is pretty poor, whereas the Sharks only missed like 1. I think it was 6 out of 7 or something like that. So, yeah. The Sharks, though, did concede a ton of penalties, 15 to 7. So that will be one area that was a little bit concerning for them. But still, an away win, in New Zealand over the Highlanders at a stadium that's usually pretty tough to get a win at. Take that all the way to the bank. Kerwin Bosch with that big boot of his scored a bunch of points. He did kind of cost them some points by, at one point, trying to run the ball out of his own 22. Instead of kicking it, he had miles of time to kick it. He was within his 22. He could have kicked it out on the full. Decided to run it out. Couldn't beat the first man. Got turned over, and it led to one of the tries for the Highlanders. So, overall, though, pretty good game from him. Fussy had 102 run meters, 6 defenders beaten. Nadeki had 69 run meters and 8 defenders beaten for him. So, yeah. There was a streaker at the game as well, and that probably got the biggest cheer of the night. Usually they don't show the streaker on the camera. The camera quickly pans away, but they showed him long enough. So, yeah. I should say that there was probably a key turning point in this game where I think it was at 30 points to 15. The Highlanders had a attacking line out not far from the Sharks line. And they did a really slick line-out move, and Rob Thompson was in the gap of all gaps. The move had worked perfectly, but it hit his chest and he dropped it. Probably should have caught it. But yeah, that was perhaps a turning point of the game. Because if they score that try, it is absolutely game on, but was not to be. The next one, Brumbies against the Reds. Sorry, the Rebels. The Brumbies Reds was last week. Brumbies Rebels. Rebels coming back from Japan with that terrible loss over the against the Sunwolves last week. Absolutely needed to bounce back with a strong performance. And in the first half, it's like they weren't even there. The first half was embarrassing for the Rebels. Admittedly, it got better in the second, but that was poor. It started Simone's try on 5 minutes. He threw a dummy, made it 7-0. Banks got a try through Lolosio, and man, that guy looks good from only 2 games. His goal kicking's not the best, but he looks the business, at least in terms of his running game and distribution game. A great offload for that one. It's magic. It's worth watching the highlights just to see that little pass. 14-0. Nasarani and Seo had a massive head clash. Seo went off, didn't come back. That's a bit disconcerting. Cusack got a try, former Sevens man. It was Salamota Kata with the big fend as well. 19-0. Kata got a try, and it was Samu with a big line break. He did a tackle, got tackled on the ground. He released it, picked it back up. Nobody in front of him. Just runs half the length of the field. Crazy from the Rebels, man. You can't be playing like that. 24-0. And it wasn't until Cottrell finally got the first try on 38 minutes for the Rebels they actually got on the board. So, yeah, it was 24-7 at halftime. Yeah, it was pretty bad from the Rebels. Second half, Cottrell did get another try pretty much right after halftime. It was probably about as far out. He put his head down from a metre and went over. But then Fainga got a try for the Brumbies and just kind of took it back out. The Rebels had one disallowed for a bit of obstruction, but then Petty got one on 59. Again, that puts it back to within like 10 points, 31-21, but that's as close as the Rebels got. Other than that, this game was just a bridge too far for them pretty much the whole way. I should mention Lolosio kicked a drop goal as well. His team was going phase after phase. They couldn't break the D. Just a lot of the droppy. Very good skill to have, very slick. In terms of the game, it didn't really do them much. It meant that the Brumbies would have needed 2 converted tries, not just a try and a unconverted try, like a converted and unconverted. So it was still additional points, and I guess it got some reward for their time down that end of the field. So yeah, it was an instinctive decision. Be interested to see what his coach has to say about it. But yeah, and then Wright's try right at the end was also kind of worth the price of admission. It was a little kick through, I think, from Simone, and he took it almost behind his shoulder, gathered it, and went in for the try. So I know some of you guys, because I did the live stream for the second half, mentioned you don't like watching the Aussie games. There's still some magic to be seen from the Aussie team. So yeah, there was a consolation try to Lamani at the end for the Rebels, but too little too late. He tried a drop goal conversion, missed it. So 39 points to 26 final score. Possession and territory in favour of the Rebels. likewise run meters, but you wouldn't know it. It's kind of one of those ones that stats don't do it justice. The Brumbies made 132 tackles to the Rebels 83, but the Rebels knocked on 7 times to the Brumbies 2. So Brumbies very much in control, just looking the better team all round than the Rebels, who looked at times kind of a bit loose and just a bit disjointed, whereas the Brumbies are looking more like a well-oiled machine. Not perfect by any means, but they still look alright. Samu for the Brumbies had 6 defenders beaten, 63 run meters, was pretty good. Alaalatoa had 16 out of 17 tackles, which is phenomenal. Dane Hilapeti losing effort, 106 run meters, 6 defenders beaten. Not the best crowd for this one either. So they were still treated to some pretty good tries. And some forwards tries as well, which count for just as many points. But yeah, overall interesting couple of games. Rebels, like I said, are kind of in trouble at this point. Only 2 games in, but they, I think, are back home for the next one. They need to start winning. Brumbies, I guess, are going according to the plan as the favourites in the Aussie Conference. Highlanders, like I said, not the best start for them. And the Sharks, kind of like the Brumbies, are doing pretty well, sitting pretty at the start of the season. You guys let me know your thoughts on the games. Thanks for those of you who joined me for the live stream with the second half of that one. That was a bit of fun. And yes, I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.